Today on Two-Wheelin', Texas.
On the ground and in the air, we were there.
It's the power of the pedal as our intrepid cyclists explore and conquer the highways and byways, making a ride around San Antonio a flight to adventure. While we rustle up some real history.
That river valley right there at the Medina River has been inhabited by men for over 10,000 years.
Don't sweat the flats.
I see you're pretty well trained at this.
I'm not.
Because that's just part of the romance.
Are you guys getting married or something?
Climb on, clip in, and start pedaling. Two-Wheelin', Texas begins right now. From the state with the most roads and the most stories to tell, the now and the then, an exercise in discovery. Two-Wheelin', Texas.
Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us on our inaugural leg of Two-Wheelin', Texas, circumnavigating San Antonio on 1604. Some very nice scenery with some diversions along the way. And I want to talk a little bit about diversions. You guys get out there, put your head down, and you pedal. And the idea is to get through and get your heart rate up and breathe a little bit. And a lot of the time, you miss the ride. You aren't there for the territory that you're going through. There is no context of the natural or the human history of the place where you are. So today, our goal is going to be there for the ride, to do more than just go through space. Anybody know anything about this particular area?
I'm Gene Jensen, and I operate a small World War II aviation airport and museum a couple of miles down the road. If you have a chance, we'd like to show it to you today.
What do you say, guys?
Sounds good.
Sounds wonderful.
Sounds good, yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, after we get from there, just a little further down the road is the Land Heritage Institute, where they've got 1,200 acres with 4 miles fronting the Medina River and roughly 18 miles of surface trails that can be ridden. Because of the fact that there's over 10,000 years of continuous human occupation of the area, there's a lot of archaeological interest in the area.
Thank you for being with us today. Are you guys ready to push off?
Yes.
All right.
It'll take us some time and numerous rides, but our ultimate goal is to circle San Antonio on Loop 1604. That is something like 95 miles, tracing a way around some of the region's oldest history and over terrain that climbs from the flat coastal plain, where we are today in South Bexar County, into the edge of the hill country on the north side.
I love the speed and the freedom of it.
Our company today, Kenneth Nelson, an engineer and a speed freak.
Why do you pedal?
Probably for most of the reasons that you were talking about earlier. I'd like to go out and, get the heart rate up and get a little bit more, feel like I did something that day. Just love going out there and going fast.
Web administrator Jordan Merson, guiding us toward 10,000 years of continuous human habitation of this part of the world.
It's been a lifelong hobby for me, and I've always enjoyed it.
Pediatrician Dr. Frank Montemayor.
Just like photography is a wonderful way to explore the world, so is cycling.
Freelance photographer J. Michael Short.
My day job is I work at Lifetime Fitness as a cycling coach.
Don Lasoli, who put this group together for us. And U.S. Air Force Colonel retired Gene Jensen. It may be a loop, but already today we have proven our group can get lost on it. And it's my fault. I asked fellow riders to meet at Highway 16 South in 1604. That sent most of the group to the Helotes area and proved first my directions were too vague, and second that there is an obvious north side bias toward the big loop that really is a lot more than miles of metastasizing strip centers. And that's a good thing. because our sprockets and wheels are spinning into the unknown, where the sky can literally open and something totally unexpected can nearly land on us. Crossing Applewhite Road at 1604, it's best to look both ways and up. When the wind's out of the south, this is final approach to Cannon Field, home of the Alamo Liaison Squadron. On his low-riding recumbent, Squadron President Gene Jensen pedals over 1,000 miles annually. But he spends plenty of time riding high in these flying museum pieces. This is History on the Wing.
This airplane is designed to fly very slowly. What you see here is what we call leading edge slots. This allows the airplane to, when the pitch angle gets to the right amount, the air stops flowing over this part of the wing and starts flowing over this part of the wing, which increases the lift and allows the airplane to land at a very slow speed or to take off at a very slow speed. So it did not require a runway. Any patch of road, no matter how rough, an open field, a piece of the beach, they tried to get close to the water where the sand is more solid rather than away from it where the sand is dry and soft. These airplanes were used for virtually anything you'd use a Jeep for. Their principal first assignment was to direct artillery fire. With these eyes in the sky and a radio that they could direct fire on the ground, artillery finally really became effective. That's a World War II survival knife still in the leather scabbard. If you pull it out, you'll see the knife's rusty. It hasn't been taken as well care of as it might have. But
looks like it's barely moving, right? Isn't that incredible?
Are y'all part of the Confederate Air Force then, or?
we have many members who are associated with the Commemorative Air Force, as they call it now.
Okay. They've changed the name since I was a kid.
But officially, we're not a part of the Commemorative Air Force, although we support them and we do a lot of fly-ins at their events.
Just checking it out. I like that.
Yeah.
I love these little
I
planes.
used to date her.
Yeah.
You can tell it was late in the war because as the war went on, the nose art became more and more risque.
But this is the actual painting that was on the airplane when it was in service.
When it was in service. Now, about 20 years ago, we located the man who did the artwork, the original artwork, and he corrected or repaired paint damage. Okay, make it hot.
It's on both.
This is truly a Piper Cub. This happens to be a 1939.
Why was this airplane so distinguished that it really is like a brand in and of itself?
Well, it was so universally safe to fly. Almost anybody could fly it with or without flying lessons. Many of them were delivered in a crate to the military with an instruction book to put them together. Use a couple of young soldiers, one of who had some experience with a motorcycle because of the air-cooled engine. And of course, it usually meant he was a little bit daring. And sometimes they had to actually teach themselves to fly it. And it flies, it lands and takes off at a very slow speed. It's very simple, very easy to repair. It's made of fabric over a frame. If they got damage, whether it was battle damage or just mistakes, you could repair it very, very simply. And they built over 10,000 of them during World War II. And they didn't even send a 100-hour inspection list with them because they never expected them to last 100 flying hours.
But here it is, nearly 80 years later, still flying. In no small part due to the dedication of volunteers whose passion it is to wrench time backwards.
Well, the organization is really a group of individuals who are interested in preserving and keeping the history of these airplanes and the men who flew them. We invite any person who's seriously interested in helping us find, restore, and present these aircraft and their story for historical purposes. We spend time visiting some of the local schools, spend a lot of time lifting little kids in and out of the airplanes because they can actually get in these and have their picture taken. We really want the kids to learn about them.
Now, I take it these are relatively rare in 2015. How did so many of them end up in South Bexar County?
Well, you'd go back and talk to Hardy Cannon. He's the guy who Cannon Field's named after. He was a veteran of World War II, originally was a gunner on a B-17, was injured on a combat mission, but not injured so severely that he couldn't stay in the war zone and keep working. They took him off flying status, and he became a maintenance man for these kind of airplanes. And then after the war, he came back here, married, became a school teacher in a local school district, had this little farm, and he decided to start looking for these old airplanes and rebuilding them.
How many of these planes do you have out here?
We have about, well, 2 of this particular model, but we have about a dozen airplanes associated with the museum. Not all of them are kept here.
So, how is it
The ambulance version,
these L-birds, as they are called,
the whole side folds down,
are not combat planes,
back door comes open.
but combat so often found them?
You can lay a stretcher right in there.
And how is it,
It was the very first air extraction ambulance.
without guns,
This allowed them to quickly
they were still fighters?
get a seriously injured soldier back to the MASH hospital.
Small, light, and slow as they are, these planes are still a roaring connection with our greatest generation. Their almost insurmountable challenges, their selfless sacrifices. Canvas and wood and courage. The field's founder, Hardy Cannon, wrote a book on these planes. Its title says it all: Box Seat Over Hell. There is no small amount of awe imagining those days, in riding tandem with the past.
So what do you think, guys? Anybody want to ride?
I'm always up for it.
Who votes? Who votes for a ride? Who votes for giving Gene a round of applause for the tour? Thank you, Gene.
Grab onto this.
Okay.
Make sure you put minimal pressure on the floorboard because
Okay.
it's plywood.
Okay.
And now for Tailwheeling Texas.
Now just imagine that you're 18 years old and people are shooting at you or
Oh,
something.
hell no. I'm already nervous. It's cool. We flew over the Toyota plant.
A lot more relaxing than I thought it would be. No, I was really nervous going in.
We don't tell
I
them
wasn't
where we
real
land.
excited about it, but once you get up there, it's just like gliding. I mean, in a small plane like that, oh, fantastic.
Well,
A hand for our pilot, Jesse Bonilla.
Thank you.
Thank you for your safe operations.
It was a pleasure playing with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Come back see us.
We
Well,
will.
what did you guys think?
Man,
Great time.
Yeah.
tremendous, tremendous.
Well, it's just another site on 1604.
And what a wonderful piece of history.
Yeah, great piece of history.
So we've done Cannon Field now.
Next thing's across the street to the Land Heritage Institute. So
Jordan's going to take us that way.
yes, sir.
All right, let's hook up our GoPros and head out.
All right.
All right.
It should be said that while they keep them flying, airplane rides for the public are not a common thing here, and we really appreciate Gene and Jesse Bonilla for bringing history to life for us. Visitors to Cannon Field and the Squadrons Museum are always welcome on Wednesday and Saturday mornings. And so, leaving Gene behind to refuel and tie down his L-birds, we take flight again on our own two wheels. Our next stop requires a bit of a diversion off the loop to the Land Heritage Institute, just inside 1604 at Applewhite and Neal Road. This is the area that would have been inundated by the Medina River had the Applewhite Reservoir project not been abandoned by San Antonio voters in 1991. Ironically, what the aborted project left behind, still high and dry, are rich historic archaeological sites found during environmental impact surveys for the project.
We got all kinds of methods of transportation today, don't we?
What's your name?
Her name is
We
Nolly.
were pretty sure we'd found the
She's very
place
sweet.
when Don found a gift horse he could look in the mouth. We were hardly the first to arrive, as the Institute's Mark Opelt made clear.
When they were building the Applewhite Reservoir, as part of that they had to do their environmental studies. They had archaeologists here from UTSA, Texas A&M, and one of the earth movers, the drivers of the equipment, saw something unusual in the ground, and they were down about 40 feet from the ground surface. And he said, that doesn't look like anything that's natural, that's man-made. And so they stopped and brought the archaeologists over, and sure enough, it was remains. They found human remains of. It was a cook pit, and so what they discovered over the next year and a half that they were doing intense archaeological studies was that river valley right there at the Medina River has been inhabited by men for over 10,000 years. I mean, continuously inhabited. Not just like every 100 years or every 5 years. I mean, continuously inhabited. And so the Richard Bean site, which is right here behind us, about a half a mile, is world renowned.
How do they know it's been continuously inhabited?
Well, it's interesting. The Medina River is, as it runs through this part of Bexar County, it's running through sedimentary soil. So every time the river floods, it adds another layer of soil. So every layer, you can go back there and I can show you. In fact, they've marked it in some places. Every layer of soil represents another 100 years or another 5 years. So it's like reading the rings of a tree.
A foundation was created to protect the historic cultural resources discovered here, and with it was born a living land museum with its mission to educate.
We have remnants of history of the Spanish settlers that came in the 1600s, 1700s, and then the ranching families came in the 1800s, and my wife's family came at that time, and her family ranched this property, and these are our walking museum pieces here. None of these cattle have been crossbred with any other longhorn type cattle.
So these are the kind of cattle that would have been involved in these long cross-country drives to market.
Absolutely. In fact, South Texas was the starting place of most of those drives, and they would gather cattle in South Texas all over from Laredo to Victoria, Cuero. They would pull them together, they would come to San Antonio, and they would start up the Chisholm Trail. So if you drive to Austin today, you're driving on the Chisholm Trail. These cattle are descendants of Spanish Corriente cattle and Andalusian cattle that came from western Spain. When the Spaniards came to Texas, actually to Mexico in the late 1600s, they brought the cattle with them, and they would just plant them. They would just leave them out of the boats and let them breed themselves so they would have meat when they came back on later trips. and they became feral. The cattle became feral, and so between the 1680s and up until 1860, when they were all free-ranging cattle in Texas, they grew to about 6 million head of longhorn cattle, just free-ranging in South Texas. Between here and the Rio Grande, there was probably another 10 million cattle in northern Mexico. And so after the Civil War, the cattle were there, they were free. There were veterans who didn't have a job and needed to make some money. We had the Indians who were being settled and were being promised all the beef they wanted because they killed all the bison. We had Easterners who had developed a taste for beef, and we had a ready market for beef, and they began gathering cattle up here in South Texas in groups of 2,000 to 3,000. And they would drive them up the Chisholm Trail. From about 1870 to 1880, they probably drove 3 to 4 million head of cattle up the trail. And then from about 1880 to 1890, they took a more western route because the railroad then had extended farther west up in Kansas. And these cows are so adapted to this environment, they became perfectly suited for that particular job, to walk. They actually would gain weight as they went north on the trail. You know, for 20 years, it was like a great way to make money if you were in San Antonio, Texas.
The takeaway? Whether prehistoric, Spanish colonial, or Wild West, San Antonio's first roots were here in South Bexar County.
Now, obviously, you already had an airplane ride today.
Where else can you bear back history?
Offered to allow you guys to ride these cattle.
Yeah. That's Beto. He's a steer. He weighs about 1,800 pounds, and if I got you up on top of him, he might even fall asleep. He's pretty lazy.
What do you think, Don?
I don't know about
Come on, man. I'll do it.
Now,
come on, you're so wimpy.
I'll do it.
Now,
come on.
Let me just say this.
Maybe I'll get on one.
Romeo.
That big
This
one.
is the big one here.
Romeo is all the way to the gate. He's not as
We have
tall.
our own pediatrician here.
Yeah,
in
who
case
could
there's
fix
any
you up.
kind of medical
Anybody get an ear
issues.
infection, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Hoofing it is the going thing here. LHI has 18 miles of horse, bike, and hike trails.
Mark, thank you.
That's right.
Beautiful job.
Yeah.
So, Jordan, we have a little more riding to do. Tell us what we can expect.
From here on out, it's going to be a little bumpy for about a half mile back to the house that Mark mentioned, and then we're going to jump through a gate and get on the Medina Trail.
On these 1,200 acres are homesteads. This ruins, dating back to the 1850s, was built using slave labor. Among the structures still standing, a corn crib, turned high-tech, solar-powered art gallery.
So this is an installation done by a photographer named Anson Seal. It's lit from behind, but it's powered by a solar unit on the roof. The photography is done by a camera of his own invention, panoramic camera.
How old is the structure?
Turn of the century. The piece was
Previous. I was going to say the previous century, no.
It's backlit and powered by a solar panel on the roof.
This is kind of a corny picture.
Now, did you pass by the homestead, the house?
The old house there, the
Yeah.
3-story one?
What you saw is the wooden frame
Right.
that dates from the turn of the last century. Underneath, inside that house, is a sandstone house that was built in about the 1850s. Twin to the sandstone house, the ruins of one is standing over here. They were twin houses belonging to a brother and sister. They were slave-built homes. They're the only public slave-built edifices I'm aware of.
Being on the road as we are, it's always smart to lock up your crib when you leave. Most of the Institute's trails are too rough for our skinny tires. Happily, immediately adjacent is the Medina River Natural Area and Greenway with more than 6 miles of paved trail. It is a windy, switchback-packed run through both riparian forest along the Medina River and upland habitat.
Well, this is surprisingly pleasant, isn't it?
Perhaps I spoke too soon. The pamphlet did say windy.
Holy moly. Quite the switchbacks.
This is windy.
Bob, just keep your weight back.
I've been riding for years, but I have to admit parts of this trail at its steepest and windiest left me walking for fear of falling.
I just found out I have not been checked out on switchbacks. I need to go back to biking school.
Which brings us to a sweet surprise. Not all falling on the trail was done on two wheels. Some was done in love.
Are you guys getting married or something? You just got married? Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. What's your name?
My name is Billy Kiesel.
Rebecca.
Kiesel now?
Yes.
Do you know how to spell it?
Yes. Yes, I know how to spell it.
I asked them before they got married. Last chance, one-way bus ticket, Mexico City. They turned me down.
Let's have a huge smooch. May you always be so happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you from here?
Yes.
Congratulations,
Thank
you're a
you.
beautiful couple.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Little wedded bliss on our ride today. Fantastic. See you guys. Have a happy life.
Two-wheelin', happy ever afterin', smoochin'. As it happened on Valentine's Day. Nothing could stop us now, right? Not.
Frank, is this from riding too fast?
Dr. Frank, a Renaissance man who can fix kids' earaches and his own flat tire.
Frank, is this from riding too fast?
Probably caused by skidding around one of those steep switchbacks.
I see you're pretty well trained at this.
I'm not.
Hey, it wouldn't be a certifiable ride without some kind of equipment issue. And none too soon, because this is the home, traffic screaming by us, stretch. Fittingly, right behind the asphalt
The
truck.
obligatory stuck in traffic shot.
Just more road for us.
Another great day on the bike, gentlemen.
Awesome. So our job today was to go out and be in the ride, not miss the ride, be in the moment, be there. Were we there?
We were there.
Felt like I was there.
Fantastic. This was a great ride today.
On the ground and in the air, we were there.
Ready for next time.
Oh yeah, I'm ready.